I think just like humility is kind of the biggest thing. And so like I think this is a good thing, but like as I've started to grow ice basketball and I'm starting to get bigger, with being in that business group, I've had people reach out and say like, how are you doing this? Like give me advice
Right.
and all that stuff. And I'm like, I don't know why you're asking me. I still have so much like I can improve, right? And I think that's the mentality that you have to have. You can look back and say, it's pretty cool what I've done so far. But there's always things that I can improve. And I feel like, it's as much as I like to think we have a good program now, I get excited imagining, give me another 5 years. And so I get, like most people, I tend.
You are listening to the Bridging Impact Podcast, transforming leaders on and off the court with host, Coach Furtado. Without further ado, let's dive in. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Bridging Impact Podcast. Today, I have our guest of the day is founder of Ice Basketball, Jesse Armistead. Jesse he played his collegiate basketball career at, you can correct me if I'm wrong here, Wenatchee Valley College, and his career free throw percentage was 100%. He's been in the training world for over 6 years now, helping hundreds of players improve their game. I'm excited to have our conversation today, Jesse, and so welcome to the show.
Awesome. Thanks. I'm pumped to be here.
Yes, sir. So let's dive right in. What kind of impact did the game of basketball have on your life growing up?
I mean, it's probably what most people say, but I attribute a lot of things in my life to basketball. I was a multi-sport athlete growing up, so baseball, football, basketball. But basketball was always the one. I remember watching the 20 years ago YouTube videos of Jason Williams and Pistol Pete and those guys, and those are some of my bigger memories. And playing in my cul-de-sac with the basketball hoops that had a bent rim and a broken backboard and all that good stuff. But it's kind of been my main focus, and eventually it ended up basketball led me to meet my wife, and now we got a beautiful daughter, and now it's my full-time job. So basketball's made a pretty significant impact, you could say, on my life.
Absolutely. No, I love that. And so with that, what kind of life lessons do you feel like basketball taught you that now helped you learn how to start your own basketball training company?
I think one of the coolest things about basketball is that you can practice it by yourself. I've tried to get into other sports like tennis. That's a hard one to practice by yourself. But like basketball, it's I think people like it because if you have a basketball and you have a piece of cement, even you look at kids that just have grass, right? You can practice, and so there's really no excuses, right? You can. I think that's a big part of it. Is it's all on you, right? And if you put in the effort, then you'll get where you want to go.
And I'll let that piece of information be foreshadowing to parts of our conversation, talking about teaching athletes how to take the initiative themselves to train themselves. But before we get into that, I'd love for you to share a little bit of your story and your opportunity of why you decided to start ice basketball.
Yeah, so like every kid, I wanted to play in the NBA. I wanted to play college basketball, but I'm also a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, so a 2-year mission was in my plan there right after high school. So didn't have many offers. I wasn't really looking because I was more focused on the mission part. So went there for 2 years, came back, and after taking 2 years off, it's kind of like, well, I'm not really in shape to play college basketball, so I'll kind of just move on. Crazy coincidence. My younger brother ended up going on a mission, and Wenatchee Valley College was looking for some people because guys get injured, guys get kicked off the team, and so they needed somebody like immediately in the middle of the season. And our old AAU coach called looking for my younger brother to tell him to go play, but he was in South Korea. So my dad said, well, his older brother's not doing anything. So anyways, we got that call on a Friday, flew up there Saturday morning, tried out. Coach said, yeah, you can stay. Ended up getting to play, 15, 20 minutes a game for the rest of the year. And so that was awesome. Ended up meeting my wife up there. And then at that point, I'm sure a majority of players' basketball careers come to an end. I had to choose between basketball and my wife. because I had no money, so I also had to work. So ended up deciding to get married and move back to Utah where I grew up, and start going to architecture school. And then I got into, my cousins were in a training program, which growing up I didn't have any personal trainers, so I had no idea that you could actually make a living off of that. It's usually guys doing like side things or high school coaches that did extra stuff, but got me in touch with them, and I started as a trainer, and that kind of opened my mind to, well, maybe you can like make a business out of this. And so I learned a lot from working for those guys. And it's about 3 or 4 years. I ended up buying into the company, I guess, as like a franchise situation where I had an area that I bought and I was over. So I learned a lot on the business side there. And then one of the biggest things was I went like I think we're going to talk about this later, but as a trainer, like I think you should always be learning, right? And learning new things and having open ideas. So I started watching YouTube videos, like Drew Hanlon, Micah Lancaster, right? All these guys that I was like, wow, this is so much deeper than just shoot the basketball and make it go in, right? And so I started studying, getting more into that, and then had the opportunity to go to a conference in Miami, the first Mastery Hoops conference that Coleman and TJ put on, and Tyler put on. So, and it's kind of funny because I convinced the owner of the company I was working with to go with me. And so we were there, and I was listening. My mind was being blown. Tim Martin was there that time. Drew Hanlon was there. And so I'm like, wow, there's all these crazy things that we need to add into our training. We need to like change everything completely, which was probably a little extreme, but I was like, we got to change some things, add some things. And after the trip, got together with the owner of the company that I was working with, and was like, we gotta add this stuff. Like, I think this would be awesome and help our players. And they're kind of like, nah, we like how we do it right now. I was like, I don't know how you could go to that and not come away with anything. So we had some disagreements there. So we tried to make it work for a little bit, but then I realized the way I wanted to go, I needed to head out on my own and start ice basketball. So that's what I did. Kind of much different program. That other program is still great. I still send people there all the time. But my focus was on getting my players to be problem solvers, because with my other program it was just private stuff, technique based. So they had incredible looking shots by the end of it, but then they would get in the game and not know what to do with it. So that was kind of why my philosophy changed a little bit and why I decided to leave. And it's been, it was kind of a scary thing. My wife was pregnant when I told her, yeah, I'm going to leave this business that I've built up for the past 4 years and start brand new. And so it's kind of crazy, but you have to bet on yourself sometimes. And it's paid off, and ice basketball's been fantastic and helping a lot of kids. So that's longer than I meant it to be, but that's the story there.
Well, it's hard to go Spark Notes, right? Because that's a many years, and you talked about the foundation, and I think it's first off, like, to kind of go back, it's like almost amazing how things kind of worked out where, you weren't really supposed to play college basketball, but you were kind of almost called into it. And then, it was the opportunity to meet your wife, which is, it's, you can be partners in life and in business, which is incredible. And then obviously going to this then retreat, right, Mastery Hoops, which I actually just subscribed to their modules because I'm a big fan of them as well. And so for those that are listening, and it can either be other coaches from other different sports, I feel like the new wave for training and teaching and even coaching, because I'm a high school coach as well, is teaching our athletes to be problem solvers.
Yeah.
What do you think, or not what do you think, what was some of those big ideas that you got from that conference that you wanted to bring back to ice basketball?
Well, there was one sentence that Tim Martin said that kind of like clicked for me, and he just said, if you're not doing live, if you don't have live play in your workouts, you're doing your players a disservice. And I was like, we're not doing any live stuff at all, like ever. And so I was like, we got to add that somehow. So that was a big thing there. And yeah, I think, like you said, kind of the new wave that's coming out with the training, and the reason I think it clicks and it makes so much sense for people is there's probably millions of kids that are skilled enough to reach the highest levels, and And so the difference between those kids and the kids that make it to those levels and the ones that don't is the problem solving and the mental side and understanding how to use those skills. And so that was kind of where I was like, I think I can contribute to that. I think some coaches are better off, working on the technique, and they're much better at that than me. But I can make a difference with the problem solving and just getting them to understand how to use their brains the right way, and just believing that they can do awesome stuff is another big focus of mine. Like girls basketball, for I don't know what the reason is, but I would say right now I train 60% girls, 40% boys, which is a switch from how it was a while ago. But I think it's cool because girls are starting to, just believe that they can do awesome stuff, right? They can throw behind the back passes, they can break people's ankles, and I'm sure pretty soon we're gonna have a lot of girls dunking, just because they know it's possible now. So that's kind of what I felt I could contribute with.
No, I really like that, and I'm in a similar camp. I feel like there are some coaches maybe better in terms of the skills and teaching the details, and then there are coaches like ourselves who are kind of teaching the problem solving, and that problem solving I feel like will take them a long ways. And there's nothing wrong with the technique, right? Because you have to learn your technique, whether it's sales and business, right? There's techniques that me and you both have to know for our businesses. And we also have to be creative problem solvers, right? There's always going to be things that are coming up. And so, kind of with that being said, I am also kind of getting into the girls basketball space. I have my first girls like club team, and they've just been a joy to coach. I also, I kind of think they listen better than most boys. I say something, they put it into action quite a bit quicker. And so with that, I just, how do you connect, some of those problem solving skills to the basketball world to helping them become better problem solvers off the court?
I think, like, I never want to, like, I guess trivialize is a good word. Like mental health and stuff like that, right? I think there's obviously things that people go through, and they need to get professional help to help them through those things, traumatic things. So I think that's really important, but I think there's a lot of stress that is pretty normal that kids just don't know how to deal with it, right? And so getting frustrated, having like problems forced upon you and learning how to deal with it is kind of the main thing. So just this week we did a drill where I called it mirrored layups, where we were playing one-on-one, and they were only allowed to shoot layups, but if they were on the left side, they had to finish with their right hand. If they were on the left side, they had to finish, or if they're on the right side, they had to finish with their left hand, right? Which is totally against like what they're used to, right? And so for the first like 5-6 minutes, they hated it. They thought it was the dumbest thing ever. But once they started to figure out, they started to be like, oh, I can do this, right? Then they started to have fun with it. And I think that's, in general, that's the blueprint to dealing with stress is understand it's going to suck for a little bit, but then you learn how to deal with it. And that applies to stress with schoolwork or stress with relationships, right? It's going to suck for a little bit, but you just keep pushing, you're going to figure it out.
That's a really good point. And I kind of wrote that down because I feel like one of the things that I notice, and I'm sure you notice, right? Obviously, with social media and highlight culture, I feel like kids feel this weighted in some way more than others, this weighted pressure of shooting. Like they want to shoot 80 to 90% with 0 turnovers and have 5 blocks and 5 steals, which in reality, like it's not going to happen, right? And so I think that's one of the challenges, for those that are listening, like an on-air training, right? You can go 8 out of 10 in shooting, or when you're going on a cone, you're going to make, 80% of those layups. So sometimes it almost builds a false narrative in your own head about, oh, like I'm going to shoot 80% of the game, when in reality, you have to learn how it's perception, action, coupling, right? So being able to perceive the defense, are they bigger? Are they quicker? Are they stronger? Or am I stronger than them? And then what am I going to do out of it? It's just like so much data that they have to go through, and it's messy, right? And can you talk about some of the challenges with, the variable training and problem solving training that maybe some players, kind of push back on at first?
Yeah. So It's funny because, again, if you're around basketball social media, there's a civil war going on, you could say. But it's funny because like I send guys to, like, I have players who I'm like, yeah, you're not skilled enough. Like, you need to go work on some cones. So go work with this trainer and then come back, right? Um, but I have players who come and they're like, I put them through these drills, and um, again, part of it is like, we need to let them struggle through stuff, right? Like, we can't every time they do something wrong just say, hey, this is what you did wrong, you need to fix it, right? Because then they never learn to think that way themselves. And so there are kids who come, and I do group training, right? And so I typically, throughout the workout, like, pull kids aside, and say, hey, like, work on this next time. Maybe this will work. Try it out. But when kids come for the first time, I typically, obviously, I haven't watched them before, and so I kind of just throw them in there and see how they do. And some of them have been like, well, you didn't tell me anything. Like, you didn't tell me to fix anything. I was like, well, you sucked at the drill and you got better at it, right? So I didn't have to tell you anything. And again, like I said, there's definitely times where I pull them aside and say, hey, like, you could have gone with your right hand there and it probably would have gone in. Maybe try it next time, see if it works, right? But it's definitely if I can get kids to come for a couple weeks, they're sold on it. They're like, this is awesome. It's totally helping. But the very first time, it's like, that's not what training is, right? That's not what we're looking for. And so it's you have to convince some people, and some people just aren't ready for it. So, send them to somebody else and move along.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, right? Like, sometimes some people aren't ready. You need some technical skills, I feel like, before you can really get into getting the most out of the variable training. And I think one of the things I heard you say is throw them in the fire. And I think one of the things I think back when I was first kind of introduced to this idea when I was watching Tyler's video, TJL Training, is talking about how you learn a language best, right? Like, I'm not sure what language you took in high school or college, but I took Spanish in college. 2 months I was in Spain and was forced to learn and speak the language. It's the best my Spanish has ever been. And then I went to Mexico in April. My Spanish was better then than it was when I was in college practicing grammar every single day. So it's like, it's messy, right? I feel super uncomfortable when I'm going down from my hotel room downstairs and I like barely can speak any Spanish, but I'm trying to get an order in, but I'm going to learn new words even if I Google Translate it.
Yeah. And I think that's a great example because so for my mission, I went to Washington State for my church mission, but I also learned Spanish because there's a lot of orchard workers there that come up from Mexico and a lot of families there. So that's a great example of, like, I went there and I was only using it like half the time, right? And so I was doing English and Spanish, as opposed to my brother who went to Chile and learned Spanish, right? Kind of like you said, he was thrown into it. And so, like, coming back from my mission, going to college, I had the option to just take one Spanish class and get all the credits before it. And so, that's a great opportunity there. So did that. But it was funny because you had all these Hispanic kids that grew up in Hispanic households, and they were awful at the class because it was a different kind of Spanish, right? This was like English class, but in Spanish. And you know how many English speakers stuck with English class, right? And so it's kind of the same thing. And so I think that's a good parallel as far as, like, yeah, we can get you all these perfect technical skills, right? Like the common phrase that people learn in Spanish is "Donde está la biblioteca?" Right? Which is like, when are you ever going to ask that, right? When, like you said, you get thrown in the fire, you just kind of have to figure things out. You make mistakes, fix it the next time, and eventually you kind of get there. And basketball's an ugly sport, right? It's not a Spanish class at college. It's a conversation on the street with somebody. And so I think that's a good parallel for it.
You said something important. I think we'll go to our next topic, is talking about figuring things out. And I think this, because we have so much access to information, whether it's us as trainers, but let's focus on our athletes, is they have more opportunities to train, to get information from the internet, and they want everything almost done for them in a microwave. When in reality, in our conversation before we hopped on and hit record, you talked about one of the things that you've been thinking about is really helping them take more initiative, and your ultimate goal would be, hey, they grab a group of kids, they go to the park every single day, they grab 8, they self-organize, and they don't even need me. I'll be out of business, but I'll be happy because I make a difference on these athletes. Can you talk about how you are helping and inspiring your athletes to want to take that initiative for themselves?
Yeah, so you mentioned it a little bit as far as like, hey, this is your open gym. Like, I want you to run it. So I do things like that where I'm like, for the warm up today, you guys get together, decide what you want to do, go for it. Right. And the first couple times I've done that, like complete awkward silence for like a whole minute and a half. Right. And then somebody eventually says, well, let's just do this. I'm like, it's okay. And a couple times it's been like, okay, let's just do layup lines. I'm like, in my head, I'm like, that's kind of lame, but it's your warm up. So, but one of my main focuses the past couple months has been teaching my kids how to scale the drills, as far as the challenge that they get from it. So, an easy example is, so we have a training app for them to do workouts at home during the week. And, there's an athleticism program, which is, not so much like a weight room kind of thing, but more like drills with a basketball where they have to jump higher. And, a lot of those drills are dunking drills, right? And so I get all my kids together. I have middle school groups that are like 6th to 8th graders. So I'm like, so what do you do when you get to the workout and it's a dunking drill and you're 5 feet tall and a 6th grader, right? What do you do? And they're like, well, I would usually just skip it. I'm like, that's typically what happens, right? But I want you to learn how to scale that. So I'm like, what could you do to make that, not impossible? Obviously, you could still try and do it, but you're not going to get anywhere close. So that gets really boring. So what could you do to make it hard enough where you can almost succeed at it? And so it's exciting. It gets you to motivated to get there. And obviously, easy answer for that is lower the rim, right? And like, lower your pride. Like, don't worry about it. Like, lower the hoop a foot or two and just work on dunking. And then once that's easy, raise it up, right? And then with the kids who can dunk it easy, it's like, how do you make that harder? How do you make a dunking drill harder? And obviously you can go through the legs, behind the back, 360 dunks, right? Just finding ways to challenge things and make it harder or make it easier, so that again, whenever they come to a drill that's doesn't fit their level, they don't have to message me and say, hey, how do I do this drill? They already kind of know, these are my different options I can do. This is what it means to make it harder. This is what it means to make it easier. But this is how I find that right level of challenge where it's not impossible, but it's pushing me past my current limits. Is kind of my best way I found to help them learn to train themselves.
I like that. And I think we had a podcast guest a few episodes before. His name was Andy. He was talking about how we need to teach he's actually a science teacher, but he was talking about how we need to teach our own students, our own athletes, to set their own goalposts, right? Your goals should not be the same as Jimmy's over on the left and Sarah's over on the right? You're setting your own goals, right? Maybe you're dunking on 9 foot right now. Maybe you're on 10 foot and you have to windmill, right? So just trying to just teach them how to challenge themselves. I'm curious, when you're encouraging them to kind of work out and train on their own, how do you structure, I guess, quote unquote, the training wheels? And then when do you pull those training wheels off?
So we have, in our app, we have 6 certifications, right? That's what I call them. Months-long programs focused on shooting, finishing, dribbling, athleticism, mentality, and leadership. And so each of those workouts take about 30 minutes a day, and the drills are all the same regardless of their level, right? And so again, my goal is to teach them how to adjust those drills as needed. And that starts at the very beginning, right? I tell them on our intro call, I say, a lot of these drills are going to be easy. Some of them might be too hard for you, but I'm going to teach you how to scale those things. And so right at the beginning, I try and set the expectation that you're going to have to figure this out a little bit. I'm not just going to give you all the answers. And so as far as like pulling the training wheels off, I like to think we don't even start with training wheels, but if they're riding and about to fall over, then I can catch them and throw them back up, and they'll still be wobbly and maybe fall again to the other side. I can catch them, throw them back up. But that's kind of how I like to think about it, is I I really like throwing kids in the fire. Like I said, I think that's a great phrase. Um, and if they're the kind of kids that I want to work with, they might not figure it out, but they want to figure it out. And that's kind of what I look for as far as kids that join the program.
I like that. And I think you talked about, I feel like your training wheels, so to speak, would just be setting the expectation, right? This is
Yeah.
it, right? You are going to, right? I'm clearly communicating that you have to figure out how to adjust this drill, right? That's your training wheels. And then now go fall off, right? Go challenge yourself. Maybe it's too hard. Maybe it's too low. Then make your adjustment. And so I think that's a really good way because, when I feel like that's one of the hardest things, right? When you're in college, like, you have to figure out your major. Okay, I graduated with a business degree. I have to figure out, do I want to even do business? And
Right.
so I don't know what the percentage is. I saw it before. It's like most people that get a major in X, they don't even end up doing X
Yeah.
job, right? Because they have to go figure it out, right, in life. So that's just such an important life skill.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And if you can figure that out before college or during college, right? Then you're ahead of the game. So again, that's the goal, right? With what we do is preparing them now so that they don't have to learn the lessons later.
I like that. What are some of the leadership points that you teach in the program?
I think leadership is big, and I think the biggest thing with that is creating relationships, right? It's really hard to lead people if they hate you. Um, it's even harder to lead people if you hate them, right? So,
Yeah.
building relationships is a big part of that. And I like to think that we've created a community where all of our kids love coming and they're supportive of each other. Um, I think Coleman does a great job pointing this out lately, but competition doesn't mean you have to have animosity, right? Or like hate the people that you're competing against. And so we're able to compete hard and go at each other, but still, work together. And I think that's the goal with leadership, right? You can have differences and all that, but as long as you can to work together towards a common goal, then it's going to work. And so some of the things we talk about are, again, even if you don't like somebody, try and get to know them, right? So you at least understand where they stand and how to interact with them, and being adaptable, just like with basketball, being adaptable to different people, right? Because half the team is going to react one way, the other half of the team is going to react differently to what you say. They're all going to have different problems with the coach. And so if you can, I guess, kind of be that, I don't know if you've seen Treasure Planet, the movie, the Disney movie. There's a little pink monster thing that just can change into whatever he needs to be. I don't know why that came to my mind, but if you can kind of be that Morph is his name, where you can kind of change and adapt to whatever the team needs, then naturally people will start to look at you as a leader, even if you're only doing it to help each other out. So being adaptable applies not just to basketball, but leadership as well. And I think that's the key.
Yeah, being adaptable and being able to connect with others, I think that's such an important part. And it sounds like you all have such a great community there that I think that's what separates different basketball training companies or clubs is like what's the environment, what's the community, what are you going to feel like after, what kind of relationships are you helping cultivate so these kids can then have people that are in their corner as they graduate high school and move beyond. So that's something that's really important. And I think just as far as scaling and growing your business, I think as for leaders, one of the things I've been thinking a lot about myself is how can I become a better leader and how can I best serve them, and how am I always helping my athletes get better? What kind of challenges have you overcame when it comes to how you want to coach or how you want to lead or how you want to build the business that you feel like has really helped unlock success, not only for yourself, but also for your athletes?
It's just, again, it's hard to. It was almost easier to just work for somebody and be a trainer, right? Because then it's just I'm doing my job, right? I care about the kids. When you have to run the business part of it, it's like, okay, I got to make money, right? As much as I'd love to do this for free, um, I got to make money and support my family. So, and it's that balance between how much can I give, right? For free before it starts hurting myself and my family and what I need to do. And so, like, as much as I would love, we have by the end of this weekend, we should have about 80 kids in our program. I come every week. And as much as I would love to do 80 one-on-one sessions a week, that's more or less impossible. And so, it's always going back to what can I do to help them. And that's one of the reasons why like the training app was such a big deal when I left my other company and started that. Because I was like, now I can coach you like the whole week instead of just the hour that we're in the gym together. I can reach more kids. And so there's been times, especially like during the high school season, where, that we'll have our session on a Monday and then have a game on a Tuesday and they totally suck. And they're like, yeah, I want to freaking fix whatever, but I don't know how to. And they can just message me on the app or send me a video and I can be like, well, this is what you can do. And then that way I'm able to help them before, the next Monday rolls around. And so finding ways to have an impact, show that you care outside of the actual sessions, I think is a big thing. I love going to the games. I bring my camera so I can make highlight films for them from the games. And so as far as scaling, I feel like, I sometimes I'm like, I need to do more marketing. I need to pay more for Facebook ads. I need to do all this other fancy business stuff. And then I come back to, if I am doing my best and the kids love it and the parents love it, it's going to grow. And so I think that's, again, when you're thinking about providing for your family, it's like money, money, money. But then it's like, if you go back to, if you care about them, the money's going to come and you don't have to worry about it. That's the big key, I think.
I love that. No, I think that's great advice and great opportunities for, potential trainers or coaches that want to learn about, taking the first steps to starting their business. And I think you're a great model of, you got a lot of the experience in as a trainer, because I don't think you can just roll out of bed and say, I'm going to start a training business and not know. Maybe you played basketball, but in my opinion, and I'm sure in yours as well, is playing and coaching and / training, being a coach / trainer is significantly different than being a player, right? There are so many different skills that go into it. And then on top of that, right, if you want to be a business owner, you have to have to own those skills. So it's a continuous journey. And so for someone that's just starting that journey, what advice would you give to really make sure that they become lifelong learners?
I think just like humility is kind of the biggest thing. And so like I think this is a good thing, but like as I've started to grow ice basketball and started to get bigger, with being in that business group, I've had people reach out and say like, how are you doing this? Like, give me advice and all that stuff. And I'm like, I don't know why you're asking me. I still have so much like I can improve, right? And I think that's the mentality that you have to have. You can look back and say, it's pretty cool what I've done so far. But there's always things that I can improve. And I feel like, it's as much as I like to think we have a good program now, I get excited imagining, give me another 5 years. And so I get, like most people, I tend to compare myself a little bit to the big names like Coleman and like Drew Hanlon and Tim Martin and all these guys that have trained, 50 NBA players and stuff like that. And I'm also like, well, they're also 15 years older than me. And so, I have some time if I just keep working my butt off. Imagine where I'll be in 15 years, as long as I keep improving and doing that. So humility is a big part of it. And you have to balance that with, not thinking that you're so awful that you should give up, but having that focus of, as long as I care about the kids and I'm trying my best to get better, it's going to work out, and people will be happy to pay, right? If you provide enough value, people are happy to pay whatever it is they need to pay. So if you focus on that, I think, it's not only better business wise, but for your mental health as well. It's a lot more enjoyable than suffering through doing stuff you don't want to do.
100%. No, that makes a ton of sense. Patience, humility, continuous learning, I feel like are all key ingredients into, wanting to become successful at whatever you end up wanting to do. And then my last kind of question before we wrap up and I have you kind of share where people can connect with you and learn more about ice basketball is I would love to learn, because as you're a father and you're a husband, how do you manage, right? I think that's one of the challenges sometimes for entrepreneurs is to not work 100 hours a week. So I'm just curious how you time manage and make sure that you prioritize family time as well.
That's a great question. I think first you have to realize that it's probably not going to be what you think it is. And so my wife is incredible. And as much as she likes to say she is impatient, she's one of the most patient people I know. Because it was about 4 years with the previous company trying to build up, enough clientele to make money. And with that system, again, it worked for some people. It didn't work for me. And so I spent 4 years trying to get to where I was making $1,000 a month, and that really sucked. And so she was working a full-time job just to allow me to try and make that work. And then, like I mentioned, she was pregnant when I said, yeah, I want to leave and start over. She's like, well, it took 4 years to get us to nothing pretty much. So what makes you think like this is going to work? And, lucky for me, she trusted me and saw that I was working hard and knew what I wanted to do could work. And so finding the right partner that's going to support you is the biggest thing there. And luckily, just a couple months ago, in just a year and a half with ice basketball, I've been able to make more money than I did in the previous 4 years combined. My wife was able to quit her job. And so she's at home with a baby now. So now I can work as many hours as I need to keep it growing. And again, the best part of all that is that I feel like I'm giving back more to the kids now, like I'm giving them more value. So I'm making more money for my family. I'm giving more value and helping more kids. And I just expect us to keep growing. I just hired another trainer. And so, finding the right partner is the biggest thing as far as balancing family. And, there are times where there's weekends where I'm like, I'm going to go watch games. And she's like, okay, well, let's go with you. Right. So it's not always one or the other. Right. So yeah, it's ideally, right. The goal is work my butt off right now so that later I can have more time with them and spend more time with them. So it's not from age 20 to age 80, I'm always going to work 8 hours a day and have 5 hours a day for family, right? The goal for us right now is I might be working 70, 80 hours a week, but in a couple years, hopefully that drops down to 10 to 15 and we'll be able to do the things we want to do. So everybody's situation is different. My biggest thing would be if you have the right partner, you'll always be able to find the right balance.
I love that. That's great advice, and just testament to you for continuing to pursue your dreams, for going to ice basketball and trusting in that. So that's great. It's inspiring me because I'm a little bit behind in my times of how long my time of service, so to speak. And so you're continuing to inspire me and inspire others as well. And so where can people that, are inspired or want to connect and learn more about ice basketball, where can they find and connect with you on social media?
Easiest place is Instagram. So just at ice_bball. Easiest place to find me. Post our drills, post a lot of my thoughts there. So have a website, but I don't really use that very much. But so that Instagram's the easiest place to do that. And if you're in Utah, then I'll be at pretty much whatever tournament is going on. So I'll be there if you want to reach out. But I think one of the weirdest things about basketball industry and trainers and stuff is how much arguments there are through the internet, right? So I love that you're doing stuff like this, the stuff that Coleman's doing, everybody that's trying to make things more amicable. And like you said, I think we should try and inspire each other instead of tear each other down and just try and be right. So I'm happy to talk and connect with anybody. So I'm excited I was able to do this with you today. And I think what you're doing here is great.
Appreciate your time. Appreciate the kind words. And let's keep going.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Bridging Impact Podcast. We'd love it if you would like, subscribe, leave a comment and a review on whatever platform you're on. It's the best way to help us grow. We appreciate you for doing that. We'll shout you out on social media. I'd also love if you connected with me on social media. Let me know your thoughts, and this is why I do it. I want to share knowledge and wisdom from experienced leaders to people like yourself and myself, so we can have this dialogue and move forward, make an impact on the world. So stay tuned, stay subscribed. Cheers.